So we are looking at David Harvey's classification of theories, different types of theories, and last time we looked at status quo theory, um, and today we are going to look at what he calls counter-revolutionary theory. So last time we looked at status quo theory. And just to read it to refresh our memory, a theory which is grounded in the reality it seeks to portray. So it seeks to portray certain reality, and it is grounded in that reality or that conception of reality, and which accurately represents the phenomena with which it deals at a particular moment in time. So it might not be portraying the whole reality, but it is portraying the part of reality which it wants to portray or highlight. And the only criticism at this point Harvey make of this theory is that it claims to be universalist, but by having ascribed a universal truth, mm, this can mean many things, but one of the things which he might be aiming at is that it portrays this particular conception of reality or particular angle on reality or particular aspect of reality to be the reality which is true at all time. Status to the proposition it contains is capable of yielding prescriptive, and that's how it becomes prescriptive. So it is initially it is not prescriptive, it describes the reality it is dealing with, but because it treats that particular aspect of reality to be the reality, uh, in this move it transits from describing a reality to prescribing a reality, because when you claim universal truth for something which is only partially true or true from certain perspective or certain aspects or certain point of view, then you are basically claiming that this is all the reality is, or that's how you should look at the reality, and that's the only way the reality should be looked at. So it is capable of yielding prescriptive policies which can result only in the perpetuation of the status quo. So every system, I guess I shouldn't say every system, but every system tries to sustain itself. So basically it um, makes it impossible. It tries to make it impossible to have any other system in place. So one way of doing this is to um, make sure that all other um, conceptions of a system is considered against the reality, or is considered uh, erroneous or whatever, misrepresentation of reality is. So this much we did last time. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, and that's the counter-revolutionary theory and Marxist. I love this theory, because this is the type of theory which also claims to challenge the status quo theory, but Marxists claim that this theory is counter-revolutionary. Like it is actually making the real revolution, that is the Marxist revolution, impossible. And generally, the aim is at other interpretations of Marxism or socialism or revolution even. So basically, even though Harvey is claiming that status quo theory is prescriptive, Marxist theory is prescriptive, as we'll see in a minute, not just towards the status quo theory, but also other competing revolutionary theories. So Marxism as a revolutionary theory doesn't just want to challenge the status quo, but it also wants to make sure that all other conceptions of that challenge, uh, be they Marxist, socialist conceptions or non-socialist conception, they should be um, considered illegitimate. So in that sense, Marxist theory is also very prescriptive. But anyway, I'm um, running ahead of myself here. So counter-revolutionary theory. What is counter-revolutionary theory? So according to David Harvey, a theory which may or may not appear grounded in the reality it seeks to portray, but which obscures, beclouds, and generally obfuscates, either by design or accident, our ability to comprehend that reality. Which reality? So a theory which may or may not appear to be grounded in the reality. Which reality? In the reality it seeks to portray, okay, but which obscures, beclouds, and generally obfuscates, either by design or design or by accident, our ability to comprehend that reality. So basically, what he's saying is that theory is idealistic. It's not grounded in reality. Counter-revolutionary theories are not grounded in reality, neither in the status quo reality nor in the reality which is the real reality. And this is one of the standard Marxist objection to other competing revolutionary theories. I'm not saying whether it's true or not, but well, Marx criticized other socialists at the time, on these grounds. Lenin did, and throughout the history, socialists have been accusing each other and other revolutionaries of being idealistic. So that's the counter-revolutionary theory, which is a theory which is not grounded in reality. Either the reality it is fighting, or the reality it is trying to overthrow, or the actual reality. Such a theory is actually usually attractive and hence gains general currency because it is logically coherent. So it's and it's not just Marxist. Other revolutionaries accuse each other of these things as well. So, for example, Islamists, within Islamists, there are people who say we are realistic revolutionary and other people are um, those who criticize or try to criticize their strategy, that they are idealistic. Um, so they're saying those theories are beautifully designed. That is, they don't have gaps. They are consistent, but they are consistent because they are impractical. But when you have to actually practically face the reality in practical terms and try to overcome that reality, then obviously you can't continue to be consistent. You have to compromise. You have to make compromises in order to continue the struggle. But those who are just in their ivory tower and they don't have to grapple with the reality, they can be consistent, obviously. And this can be true, but it's not necessary that all these accusations are all the time, on the mark as well, because revolutionary theories, revolutionary practice also makes mistake, not just uh, unavoidable mistakes, but avoidable mistakes. But revolutionaries are generally, sensitive to other people's, other computing revolutionary criticism, especially if those criticisms are coming from ideologies which are similar to the revolutionary ideology. Okay, so such a theory is usually attractive. Okay, sure. And hence gains general currency because it is logically coherent, easily manipulable, aesthetically appealing, manipulable by the existing system because they manipulate. That's what he's saying. They manipulate the existing system, manipulate revolutionary purists and idealists in such a way that they fight the actual revolutionaries, I guess, or they manipulate them to malign the revolution and all those things. Uh, so this is not really categorizing theories. It's basically defining something in such a way that you are actually going to blame your opponent of committing all these things, which we have already put in the definition. So it seems to me a bit what's the word? You know, not genuine. You know. Anyway, let's see. So such a theory is usually attractive and hence gains general currency because it um, and gains general currency, but that's not necessary. A lot of theories which are called counter-revolutionary, they never get general currency as well. So that doesn't seem to be a necessary thing. Because it is logically coherent, easily manipulable, aesthetically appealing, or just new and fashionable. New and fashionable. So basically, it's putting in all the um, characteristics which he wants to accuse others of. So basically, excluding a lot of other theories by definition here. So, for example, new and fashionable theories like, for example, structuralist or postmodernist theories, you know, Marxists would criticize them because they are, you know, appealing, fashionable, etc. But really, they don't have capacity to change the system, and basically they serve the system by satisfying people theoretically without making any difference to their life, or by discrediting real revolutionaries, for example, or by many other ways. But it is in some way quite divorced from the reality it purposed to represent. So those theories are divorced from reality. So they are idealistic. And obviously, if you are claiming to be a revolutionary theory or a radical theory, you are doing two things. You are describing the reality you are trying to overcome, and then you are giving a vision of an alternative. And I guess the third thing can be that you are charting and giving a roadmap on how you are going to overcome the system which is prevalent, or which is, dominant at the moment. Okay. Counter-revolutionary theory automatically, I don't know what he means by automatically here, frustrate either the creation or implementation of viable policies. Well, if it is a counter-revolutionary theory, then viable policy Harvey is talking about here must be revolutionary viable policy. But how does counter-revolutionary theory automatically frustrate either the creation or implementation of viable policy? This assumes that this counter-revolutionary um, um, theory is very powerful. Otherwise, now this argument is disingenuous, and here is why. So, policies viable policies. As a revolutionary theory, it is your job to make viable policies here. Now, counter-revolutionary, they can't come up with viable policies because they are too perfectionist. They are perfectionist. So every policy, realistic policy, is not going to be perfection, because only theory can be perfection. So as idealists and perfectionists, they are going to criticize all policies. So they are not going to implement any policies or come up with viable policies. But and they can be criticized for that. But as a revolutionary theory, it is your job to come up with viable policies. How are they stopping you from coming up with? The only answer to this can be that counter-revolutionary theory is very powerful. Now, or it's always powerful, I don't know. Otherwise, this argument doesn't stand. Why you are blaming counter-revolutionary theory? I mean, if you can't come up with viable policies, and if they criticize, they can criticize. But what that has to do with your ability to come up with viable policies and implement them? And if you can't come up with viable policies, blaming counter-revolutionary theory is not going to help. But in reality, I'm not saying counter-revolutionary theory can't be at fault for this. At times it can be, that's an empirical question. But theoretically, you can't say that viable policies fail because counter-revolutionary theories, don't support you. I mean, why they should support you? You are the revolutionary theory. You should, toughen yourself up. Um, so that's why the this universal penchant or penchant um, of um, so-called revolutionary movements, whether they are socialists or Islamists, or to blame their offshoots or their criticizers or their detractors, is really, beside the point. I mean, that's actually not taking responsibility for what you are doing, I think. So this why I thought this claim is disingenuous, and counter-revolutionary theory automatically frustrates either the creation or the implementation of viable policy. Frustrates must be very powerful if it can automatically does that. I mean, it might actually be doing in its doing, but doesn't mean that its doings are always so powerful that it is affecting your ability to do what you are doing. And even if it is affecting, like, you can't, blame them for that. It is therefore a perfect device for non-decision making. So they are idealistic, they are impractical. That's another counterattack revolutionary theories have against their detractors, that they are just talk, no walk. Oh God, it's so similar. It is therefore a perfect device for non-decision making, for it diverts attention from fundamental issues or to superficial or non-existent issues. Superficial and non-existent issues. So theoretical issues are superficial issues, I guess. It can also function as a spurious support and legitimation for counter action designed to frustrate needed change. It it can also function as spurious. I think he might be referring to counter-revolutionary theory. The theory, because it is perfect, because it is coherent, because it is well designed, because it is populist, it might provide counter-revolutionary theory, a popular support, but which is an empty support because it's not going to make any difference. And the difference actually will make it will divert attention from and weaken the actual revolutionary theory and its capacity to make change, not change for the better, I guess. Here he might be talking about, I mean, since he is talking about revolutionary theory and non-revolutionary theory, so he shouldn't be talking about reform, or at least not non-revolutionary reform, but as we'll see, it's basically talking about reform, so it's a bit different from um, classical Marxist line, but and it's more relevant to the description of revolutionary theories, which actually become part of the system and work as reform theories, really, or reform parties. And so, yeah. Okay, let's read it once more, so if we have left anything. Otherwise, I'll stop here. Counter-revolutionary theory, a theory which may or may not appear grounded in the reality it seeks to portray, but which obscures, beclouds, and generally obfuscates, either by design or accident, our ability to comprehend the reality, and I guess change it as well. Such a theory is usually attractive and hence gains general currency because it is logically coherent, easily manipulable, aesthetically appealing, or just new and fashionable. But it is in some way quite divorced from the reality it purports to represent. Um, so, in that way, it is idealistic. A counter revolutionary theory automatically frustrates either the creation or the implementation of viable policies. It is therefore a perfect device for non decision making, for it diverts attention from fundamental issues surrounding issues to superficial or non existent issues. It can also function as spurious support and legitimation for counter revolutionary actions designed to frustrate needed change. So it can become a knowing or unknowing agent for the system, I guess. Um, a bit of conspiracy theory here too, but not that much. But I think it's quite ingenious as well as disingenuous in that basically defining counter revolutionary theory in such a way that by definition is blaming any theory which doesn't fit his theory, which he's going to call revolutionary theory and going to describe next time. So until next time, bye.